You are listening to the Bat Flip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damian, here with my co-host, Matt, coming to you on June 29th of 2021. Happy Jackie Robinson episode, Matt.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that. Episode 42. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's episode 42 already.
So,
But, well, on this episode today, we got a kind of minor major trade that happened. It's not going to be too impactful, but we have that trade. We have our first major league pitcher to get caught for a foreign substance, air quotations around that, and get his suspension, and quite possibly the worst no-hitter that we have ever witnessed in our lifetimes, and we'll break that down. But before we jump into all that, how are you doing, Matt?
doing pretty good. Just hanging out. Been real busy last week or so, and I hope everyone has a happy 4th of July this weekend. I think I might be going to my first Braves game of the year, and the first Major League Baseball game I've been to since before the pandemic here on Saturday. So I'm hoping that I'm able to make it over there for that. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, we're everything's going well. How about yourself?
Just hot with it being 107 or something, just ridiculous. I think we're on a stretch of like 15 days of over 105 or something. So just trying to stay cool over here.
Feel that for
But,
sure.
let's jump into this trade we had happened today, and that was between the Marlins and the Blue Jays. The Marlins received Joe Panic and a minor league righty, Andrew McInvale, I believe is how they pronounce it, and the Toronto Blue Jays receive Adam Simber, relief pitcher, outfielder Corey Dickerson, and $2.65 million in cash.
Yeah, this is an interesting trade here. I think the big piece is obviously Corey Dickerson here. He's a guy that you know is a real solid outfielder, probably a platoon guy. Hits right-handed pitching pretty well. For his career, his worst career batting average is 245 back in 2016. But other than that, I mean, he's typically been a upper 200s to 300 level batting average hitter, and always puts up above average production at the plate. Last year, a little bit lower than typical, with 96 WRC plus, which would be just a tiny bit below average. But this year, back to a 101 in his career, 114. Um, he's a guy that he's capable of playing the outfield. Not great out there, but he can do it. Um, and he's been pretty good for Miami. He's a guy who's going to do a lot of the right things out there in the outfield and at the plate. So good contact, puts the ball in play most of the time. So I think he's a pretty good pickup. And you look at Adam Simber as a guy who I've always been interested in. Adam Simber, he's a sidearm underhand type reliever that he's had a couple really good seasons. He put up a great season with the Padres before he was traded to Cleveland. Then he kind of fell off for a couple years, and then this year he's been really good in Miami. He doesn't strike many guys out, but he gets the ball on the ground pretty well, and he gets doesn't walk a ton of guys. He's just kind of your crafty sidearm right-hander that can make some get some outs when you need them, especially with guys on base, get double play outs.
Yeah, so the really interesting part of this deal to me is that the Blue Jays were actually really targeting Adam Simber in the deal, to be a high leverage guy in their bullpen. They've even said that already, and that the Marlins kind of wanted to just throw Dickerson in and even offset some of the salary with that $2.65 million, because they have the emergence of Jesus Sanchez,
Yeah.
one of their top prospects in left field now, and he's been really good. And the reason he's been up is because Dickerson is on the IL currently with an ankle injury. And he's going to have like a walking boot on for another couple weeks. So Dickerson's still a little ways out, but the Blue Jays really wanted to make a splash to their bullpen right now, get an impact righty. And when Dickerson does come back, like you said, he'll be a solid piece for them. Their lineup is really right-handed heavy. So getting a guy like a left-handed outfielder that they could put out there sometimes, I think really they have like Rowdy Tellez, Kevin Biggio, and I think Reese McGuire maybe. It's like those are their main lefty hitters. So adding a guy that can produce like Dickerson will help them a lot. And then it also allows the Marlins to, give Jesus Sanchez the full run in left field and say like, okay, what do you have? Are you going to be a main piece for us? And we can kind of let you season a little bit at the major league level instead of in the minors.
Yeah,
And
you gotta remember JJ Bleday is another guy who will be up at some point for them too. So
absolutely. And the thing is Dickerson's not a free agent until next year, until um, after 2022, he's a free agent, and that Adam Simber won't be a free agent until 2025. So they actually get a pretty good 4 years of control for Adam Simber on top of that all, and they really only take on 1.3 million dollars of salary this year.
yeah, so I think this is a good trade for them. You look at the Marlins and you know they didn't give up too much. I don't think Adam Simber maybe for maybe for short period of time as a fill-in like for what the Blue Jays need right now. He could be a nice bullpen arm, but I don't really think he's much of a long-term solution. There's just not enough swing and miss in his game. Um, and then you look at Corey Dickerson as a guy who's kind of a platoon outfielder, but as you said, Jesus Sanchez being there for the Marlins is definitely somebody that is going to take that time away from Corey Dickerson as a team that's I think kind of on the back end of a rebuild with the way their pitching staff is. But we'll see. You look at the guys the Marlins got back in this trade. I think that you've got Joe Panic is a guy who puts the ball in play a lot. He's a contact hitter. He'll be fine off the bench. He's one of those examples of somebody that you could always use off your bench as a guy who, if you've got a guy on third with less than 2 outs or something, he's your guy. He's not going to strike out. And, he's not the best hitter. He doesn't hit the ball especially hard. 41 career home runs. He did put up a few nice years in San Francisco at the beginning of his career, but he really has not been a very good player for the last 4 seasons. So, this year, you take what he has, and you hope you can maybe you know, get some good production out of him as a bench bat and a guy who can handle a couple infield spots. So, um, and then the bullpen arm that they got. Well, I expect the bullpen arm. Is a guy who he actually has exclusively pitched out of the bullpen in his minor league career, and he's a high strikeout guy who struggles with command at times, but I guess he's a potential bullpen arm in the majors. So
Yeah, he was a like a 37th round pick in 2019 or something,
yeah,
24 years old. So, like you said, he pretty much profiles as a bullpen arm. He's a guy who his peripherals are really, compared to what his xFIP is a lot better than what his FIP is compared to his ERA. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
yeah, he gets a lot of strikeouts. Anytime you see somebody who's got a really high strikeout rate like that, you're at least intrigued by them a little bit as a bullpen arm potentially. But I mean, he's probably more of an organizational depth type, reliever that maybe has a little bit more upside than some other types. So
Yeah, not a big piece at all. But let's move on to which one do we want to go to? We want to go to Santiago or we want to go to the no hitter?
let's talk about Santiago.
All right. So Hector Santiago of the Seattle Mariners was the first person to get popped for having a air quotations foreign substance in his or on his body while pitching, and was automatically suspended for 10 games, confiscated his glove, and everything. And it's come out. He said it's been sweat and rosin that was actually inside his glove, not on his pitching hand or anything, and the umpires deemed that it was still sticky enough and that you're not allowed to have rosin on any part of your uniform. I guess that's part of the rule. But basically, Santiago has been suspended for 10 games, and he is appealing that as of right now.
Yeah. So this is a interesting situation. You've got a guy who you know I think at some point we were expecting that somebody would get nabbed for this, because they were gonna, there's gonna be some of these borderline major league pictures, and Santiago's an example of a guy who is kind of struggling, and it's why not, if you're struggling, why not try to do it and hide it? I think is part of the thing too. And if you get caught, then you're probably gonna get DFA'd anyways. But you look at Santiago, and I mean, it is extremely hard to determine whether or not what's legit and what's not with this. If what he says is true, that it's sweat and rosin, I don't know how you can suspend him for that, because you get rosin on your hands. I mean, if it's legal to use rosin, you get it on your hands. You're sweaty because you're a professional athlete, and you're doing your job. How can you avoid it, type thing? Um, now it's entirely possible that he might be exaggerating exactly what happened or whatever, but I think there needs to be a way for them to kind of test and see what kind of substance. If it's something like spider tack that is extra sticky, then kick them out. But if it's something like sweat and rosin, there's a good chance they can't help that. So I think there needs to be some form of way to determine this.
Yeah, and that's the problem is Major League Baseball has even come out and said that they will not test this stuff. So the umpire makes the call on the field, and whatever he deems is sticky is therefore an automatic, basically that's it. That's what's going to happen. Where your Santiago did appeal, and most people will appeal it, but there's no leg for them to stand on because MLB confiscated his glove, but they won't test his glove. They won't test what is there, and he can't say, "Look, my hand is not sticky." At 10 days after when the appeals trial happens or whatever, there's no way for them to actually know at that point unless if the umpire says, "Oh, his hand's sticky," well, go right here. They swab his hand, and you go and test it. And then if you're going to confiscate the glove, say something's in there, you have to test what is in the glove so because many pitchers have already shown that sweat and rosin can be a tacky substance. It can be a thing, but those are both legal. They're completely legal. And you can't tell them that, oh, you can't have it on your glove hand when you're going to have it on your hand anyways because you're trying to rub the ball up to make it sticky enough. So, of course, it's going to get in your glove. Heck, when I was playing baseball, my glove was sticky on the inside anyways, and I didn't use any rosin or whatever. It was just sweat. Like it's gonna be sticky, anyways. So trying to sell that the guy's inside of his pitching hand glove is sticky, and not trying to test it to even see what it is. I mean, that's just a little ridiculous. And then, like they're saying, making the umpire have all the duty of the call. Well, what if one umpire thinks something's sticky, but the other umpire doesn't? Like it's all up to what the umpire's judgment is. There's no clear cut of, oh, well, this seems sticky or this is sticky. Like Angel Hernandez can call something sticky, but Lance Barksdale's not going to think it's sticky at all. Like he's just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah,
There's no way of you know of actually knowing what is the level of sticky that is too sticky for an umpire to call it. It's
yeah,
all just up to their interpretation.
yeah, and I think that's part of the what Major League Baseball is trying to crack down on, a no tolerance for anything. I think that's part of the reason is they don't want that to be a judgment call. They don't want the umpire to say, "Oh, this is spider tack," when it's not. We're going to suspend you, or another guy say. I think that's why they're kind of doing a hard line on this.
Well, then
Um,
test.
well, I agree. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They need to find some way to test this or figure out exactly what it is. Um,
Right,
so
because you can't offer them rosin, which is a sticky substance, like or sticky enough to allow you a attack on the ball to where it's more controllable. Like where you're gonna have something on your hand. You if that's illegal, then why give them it? If you're gonna call them out for using that, then why have the rosin bag on the mound? Like that,
yeah,
to me, it just makes no sense. If you're gonna say that, oh, well, we know this is some here pitchers, this is supposed to help you. It's been a thing all along, but we're gonna like, if we think it's sticky, we're gonna take you out when it could very well be the substance that we're providing you to use.
right. Which is why I'm of the opinion that they do need to figure some way out to determine what it is, what it there's no good way to determine it for the umpires on the field. What I think needs to be the case is I think the umpires need to give a pitcher a warning if they catch it or something, and then confiscate that glove after somebody's outing it instead of just ejecting them in the regular season. Because it would be easy in the postseason for someone to, hey, say someone's pitching Game 7 of the World Series, say, oh, I'm just going to get all the spider attack I want, and if they confiscate my glove after the outing, it doesn't matter, that type of thing. But I think what they need to do is, I think they need to find a way to, do this without having it be without having to be an immediate ejection, and to make sure that they're right about what it is on the glove. And like I say, and like you said, you know, you're allowed to use rosin to rub up your hands to get a little bit of grip. And if you're allowed to use rosin, then I don't understand how. I mean, I guess pitchers are going to have to be extremely careful not to get rosin anywhere but their pitching fingers. I mean, I don't know exactly how to you know how how this could be done better, but um I think you look at also the fact that the one thing that to me is kind of weird about this is that nobody else is being caught, and I'm sitting here watching the game right now, and the pitcher's bumping rosin on his hands. So I mean, I don't know, nobody else has been caught, so I don't know if it's possible that Santiago is not telling the truth. It's possible that he was using rosin and sunscreen or spider tack or something and putting it in his glove and then making excuses. I don't know. But I will tell you that I think that, there needs to be better ways to determine what it is. And if you're going to suspend for this, which I think there's definitely a need for that, you need to figure out exactly what's going on here.
Absolutely. And like you said, none of us do know, but nobody will ever know unless they do some form of testing. But another thing that that the rule is saying that you're not allowed to have it on any part of your uniform. Well, what about? I mean, now you don't see it quite as much, like we were talking before the thing about Kimbrel having that spot on his hat where it was powdery white. How can you? I mean, it just makes no sense that you're trying to tell a pitcher, oh, you can't have it here either. Like, oh, you can only have it on your pitching hand. It's just a really hard, way to try and. I mean, you're already limiting the pitcher so much. And now you're telling them the one substance they can have that you're providing them, they can only have it on one part of their body or uniform.
Yeah, and like I said, that's an extremely difficult rule to follow.
Yeah,
Rules should be things that it's not difficult to follow. It's extremely difficult to follow a rule where you're allowed to use something, but if you happen to get a little bit on your glove, the only thing I can think of is that maybe they thought maybe it was real sticky, and maybe he had been pouring rosin into his glove on purpose to get it sticky to go to it or something. But I mean, like I say, and like you said, I don't know how you know I don't know how you can determine that. But at the end of the day, we were talking before the show. You said you thought this might have been like a plant that they are trying to you know that they're trying to nab somebody, without them actually having done anything. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I think they did find something sticky, but they're taking their hard line here to prove, hey, we're not joking around.
well, and that's
So
part of my thing is that I what I'm trying to say is a plan of I don't think that any pitcher is going to be dumb enough to use a foreign substance the week these tests start. I don't think any pitcher's dumb enough to do that, knowing that they're doing these checks all the time, right? And that a guy like Hector Santiago, he's like you said, he's barely holding on to the major league spot. He's doing it with the Seattle Mariners, who, I mean, not a great team. I mean, we've talked; they've had their moments, and you think they might be able to make a run at something, but I'm thinking that Rob Manfred has been called out a lot, especially this week by a lot of pitchers and stuff for saying that these are ridiculous and whatever, and it's a bad look. So he needed something to sort of say, like, look, like you said, we're serious about this and we're going to crack down on stuff like this. And it might not have been a foreign substance. It might have been rosin in that. But he's trying to say, okay, well, maybe this is just a little too sticky that we think we need to make a call here and say, look, there's a line you can have with rosin, even if that is rosin, but you won't know because you don't test it. But that's my thing is I'm not saying that he told the umpires like, hey, you got to get somebody in this game. My whole thing is that he knows how bad of a look it is on the game right now for what these substance checks and everything are like, and no pitcher is dumb enough to do it in the first week, especially. You want to say it's a couple months down the road? I can absolutely see it. But in the first week, with how bad everything has looked, and it was especially on a Sunday, like where most of the games are on a day games where people are sweating more anyways, like to me that seems a little bit odd that happened, at the end of that week against somebody like a Hector Santiago. And it wasn't a big name pitcher, just kind of showing everybody like, hey, we really do mean business about this and we'll call you out for something.
Yeah, and I do agree that you know I do agree that you're going to look at the fact that you know they're going to take a hard line on anything to prove a point. Saying that, oh, they picked this one out from the beginning. I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I think it's possible that this who else is pitching? Wasn't Kershaw pitching Sunday? Like it's
Yeah.
possible that this could have happened to Kershaw. And if they had found a little bit of stickiness in his glove, then they would have taken the same hard line. I don't think it was just because it was Hector Santiago,
No.
but I think that it's one of those where they're going to take a hard line on whoever they might find has a little bit of stickiness to prove their point. So, um, but we'll see. I think that I do think that, and I know you probably disagree with me on this one, but I do think that the purpose of this stuff, I think it actually is working to a certain level. I hate it for Hector Santiago, and I think that that's a case where they need to flip things around. But I mean, spin rates are down, offense is up, and it's happening naturally. Because obviously the people aren't cheating anymore, and you've seen it with certain pitchers that were quote unquote dominant pitchers, Garrett Cole, that are all of a sudden getting lit up and don't seem to not know how to pitch anymore, and because they're not cheating anymore. So um, I think to a certain extent, you've got guys who are doing that. This is doing its job, but they do need to find better ways to do this enforcement and to make it fair. So, because I don't think it's fair that if you're going to let somebody use rosin and a little bit gets in their glove, I don't think that's fair that you're going to suspend them for 10 games, even though it is 10 games with pay. So, I mean, Hector Santiago ought to be happy about it because he was probably getting DFA'd anyways. So, 10 games with pay is pretty nice. But, the one other thing about this, too, I don't think anybody's really talked about enough is you lose that roster spot.
Yeah.
Your player stays on the roster, the 26-man major league roster, but he's not allowed to pitch when this happens. So that's something that's I think is pretty interesting as well in this case. So the Mariners now are down a pitcher, down a player, so they're back to a 25-man roster for the next 10 games. So I think that's something that I think that definitely needs to be
Well,
looked at. I don't think
so
that's fair at all.
they're trying to punish the teams and make sure that the teams police themselves with this cheating thing. But here's my thing. What about this? Hector Santiago is appealing. So while his appeal is going through, he's still on the roster legally, right?
Yeah,
What if they send him down? What if they DFA him? Because he's still he can definitely be that during the process of an appeal. He's not locked onto the roster.
yeah,
So what if we're going to DFA him and then he'll get his 10 games with pay, but we DFA'd him during his appeal process. He's not a part of our roster now. So when
yeah.
he
Well,
gets
then you
suspended,
probably could. You probably could do that, but I mean, if it's anybody that's you're trying to keep around, DFAing them, obviously they're gone now. So I would be interested to see what an option, like a guy that has options,
yeah,
what you could do about that. So let's say like
because then would you be suspended in the minor
yeah,
leagues?
Yeah, say that Walker Bueller, who I think's hadn't been around. I think he's still got options, right?
I believe
Say
so.
Yeah, so say if this happens to him and he gets the 10-game suspension, could you send him to AAA and just for the minimum 10 days to while he's got that? So that's something that I don't know that rule, but um, I'm sure there's ways teams could work around it. I mean, obviously with when it comes to Hector Santiago, I mean, if this is upheld, I don't know if the Mariners need him, keep him around or something. They could very easily just DFA him, but I don't know if um,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the
it's going
case
to
is
be
there,
it's
but.
going to be interesting to see something about what happens with this because, like the appeal process, I don't think any of us expect anything to come out of it because there's no way to prove anything. But anyways, let's move on to the one no hitter that we did have this week. Quite possibly could be one of the worst no hitters we've ever seen in our lifetime. But before we jump into actually the stats of the no hitter, this is the seventh no hitter on the year so far, which ties the modern era record for no hitters in a season. If you want to go back to like the 1884 season, there was 8 no hitters in the year, but this is the seventh no hitter this year, and that has happened 4 times before 2021. So 1990, 1991, 2012, and 2015 each had 7 no hitters overall in the season, but we're not even to the All Star break.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. I've never seen anything like it. And you got to remember too that this is number 8 because the unofficial one, really. I
Yeah.
mean, you could call it number 8. So, um, very interesting there. You look at the fact that um, this no hitter was this. I will say this about this. This no hitter is more of a fluke. The other no hitters, it's before all this enforcement we've been talking about. There might have been something to do with that and some of those, whatever. This no hitter, this was a fluke. The Dodgers got no hit by the Cubs with Zach Davies on the mound plus 3 relievers. I think you said it was Chafin,
Yeah, it was.
Tapera, and Kimbrel
Yep.
were the relievers, right? Yeah, so they walked 8 guys, and I believe 7 strikeouts, right?
Yep.
So 8 walks, 7 strikeouts in their no hitter, um, and basically, the chances of that being a no hitter are extremely low. It wasn't some kind of dominant pitching performance. It just was one of those games where it just so happened that that they didn't make the ball fall into places. I mean, they just got unlucky on balls in play, whatever. So this is something we wanted to talk about. I found an article online. This is from back in 2018. Um, and it was on MLB.com by Joe Posnanski. They had a list of the worst no hitters of all time. So I was sitting here thinking, where would this rank? Now these are all complete game no hitters that they had on here, but I still found it interesting. Number one on this list, there's 2 no hitters on here that the team that threw the no hitter lost. The first one was Matt Young for the Red Sox, threw one against the Indians, who gave up 7 walks and 6 stolen bases, gave up 2 runs, and it's not considered an official no hitter because he didn't pitch. He pitched a complete game, but it was 8 innings because they were on the road and they lost. So he didn't pitch a ninth inning. If they had been at home and he'd pitched the ninth inning, he would have gotten a loss and the no hitter. But this wasn't even the case. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting. And then there was a couple of famous ones. Edwin Jackson's no hitter, 8 walks and a hit by pitch, threw 149 pitches in that one. AJ Burnett had 9 walks and a hit by pitch in his. So, one other interesting one on here was the no hitter by by Johnny Vandermeer, who is famous for throwing 2 no hitters in a row. Um, so his second one in a row was actually against the Dodgers as well. He had 8 walks in that one. So these no hitters are
And
definitely,
yeah, I was just noticed. And on that one, he had 7 strikeouts.
yeah, 8 walks, 7 strikeouts. So sometimes you think about no hitters and you think about some of the ones we've seen this year so far. You think about the one that was thrown by Joe Musgrove, the only blemish, a hit by pitch. You think about the one that was thrown by John Means. The only blemish was, the ball in the dirt that got away from the catcher. So those are dominant pitching performances. But this one, this was not a dominant pitching performance by any means. I mean, it could have just as soon been the game result was the other way around in this one.
Yeah,
So
and like we were talking before the game, there was a lot of hard hit balls in this game in general, let alone a soft contact that could just bloop in or whatever. Like there were some hard lineouts, some hard ground balls that were over 100 miles an hour right at people. Um, and like you said, one of the if you look at Zach Davies' baseball savant page, it is probably one of the worst baseball savant pages of all time. I mean, he has nothing that he does really well, and he just happened to get out of the troubles whenever he got into it, right?
yeah,
And thing is, I kind of had a feeling going in because Zach Davies always finds a way to just dominate the Dodgers. And this wasn't dominating in any means, but he just always finds a way to. He could pitch really bad. I mean, I think he had close to a 5 or above 5 ERA heading into this game. And, he allows 0 runs, obviously, with no hits. Like, it just, he always finds a way against the Dodgers to do something like this. So, and you could tell through the entire thing, it never felt like the Dodgers were out of the game, even though they were down 4-0 and they were getting no hit. Like it just really didn't feel like they were out of the game because they were on base. They had a bunch of opportunities with people in scoring position on base at all. That one hit could have turned the game right into a very interesting game all of a sudden.
yeah, they could have popped a home run or something. But I tell you, the crazy thing is that you you have a team that it felt to me like you know the Dodgers were one pitch away from like winning that game. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just one of those things where it's crazy that you know, and typically I pull for the no hitter. If I'm watching a guy trying to throw a no hitter, unless it's a rival for the Braves or something that I usually pull for the no hitter.
Right.
And in this case, I was pulling for it not to be a no hitter because it was so poorly pitched. I mean,
Yeah.
they pitched so bad. I was like, oh man, I do not want this to be a no hitter. I don't want to have to talk about it, but I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting that it ended up being a no hitter. And I mean, hats off to the bullpen for the Cubs because they came in and I mean, Kimbrel pitched really well and um,
Yeah. Those
you
three have
know,
been really good for the Cubs all year long.
yeah. So, um,
But
but
a
anyways,
very
very
tough one to
interesting
talk
stuff.
about.
Yeah, no doubt for you, I'm sure. And I mean, it's hard talking about it for me a little bit too. So, but
Well, the Dodgers were just coming off getting swept by the Padres too, and so you thought coming into this game, like, okay, well, they just came off 3 in a row to San Diego. They got swept. Like they're gonna want to make some noise, and then they come there, and this is the game that gets put up, and it's just like, man, that's
yeah,
that's stupid. I mean, they
yeah,
ended up winning the next 3, but still,
yeah. And I think this is something that on occasion happens to the Dodgers. They're a team that's extremely patient at the plate,
hmm
and with the amount of walks and strikeouts that they have on their team, you know, I think that they're a team. I don't think they're typically a super high hits number team. They get on base in other ways, and then they pop home runs and extra base hits. You got guys like Cody Bellinger in that lineup. You got Max Muncy in that lineup. Those are own base guys who don't necessarily hit for a high average all the time. That also hit for power. So their stats are really good, but sometimes you end up getting some of these fluky no hitters, like or low hit games from the Dodgers because
yeah,
they're just not putting a ton of hard hit balls in play. A lot of times when they're hitting the ball real hard, they're hitting you know tanks. So, um, but anyways, I thought it was an interesting game. Definitely an interesting game to talk about. Um, in what's been an otherwise I guess rough week for the Dodgers. I mean, they won their last three, so
yeah. It was, and honestly, it was just kind of a weird week for baseball in general. Like
yeah,
this is going to be a much shorter episode than what we're probably used to because there just really wasn't much going on. I mean, our next segment we're going to jump to is our players of the week already. That was the 3 main stories we had, and that trade happened today.
yeah.
So, uh,
Well, we can also talk about one of those players this week for a while.
Yeah, the we can let's jump into the players of the week, and you go ahead and tell us about that player.
All right, so I have the privilege of picking uh, hitter first this week, so I got to pick the runaway here. It's Kyle Schwarber. He he was good this week. He is hitting home runs at a remarkable rate. Um, he this in the past 7 games this week he hit 6 homers. He hit two tonight again.
I don't
Um,
know if he hit two tonight. I know Otani hit two tonight.
Otani's hit two tonight. I think Schwarber has hit two tonight. I know he hit one tonight already. I think he might have hit two already tonight. So Schwarber has hit. He is hitting home runs at a remarkable rate right now. He hit his. Okay, he's only hit one tonight. It was his 25th of the year, and he wasn't that high up there for a long time. I mean, this has all been done in the past like 2 weeks. That he's just
Yes.
been on an absolute tear.
So since this was as of 2 hours ago, so I don't think this has his one in today. So we'll add that in. Since June 12th, if you add tonight's homer, he has 17 homers himself. That is more than any major league team has this month.
Yep. So, um, the record for a team to hit um, the record for a team to hit home runs or a player in a month, I believe, was Sammy Sosa with 25. So he's not going to catch that unless he hits like uh,
I mean,
back 4 homer games or something. But
it depends on if you what you count a month. Because I mean, if you
yeah,
count June 12th to July 12th,
well, it was for the month of June, like the
yeah,
calendar month of June.
okay,
So he's not going to get that. But um, very interesting. What a week for him. It's been pretty crazy. So.
yeah, he's been amazing. I mean, it it's been one of the more fascinating things to watch. I think 7 of those have been like leadoff homers too. So
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
they moved him up to the leadoff spot, and I think that's kind of when he started this whole tear. And to see some of these ones that he's hitting, I mean, I think before yesterday, he hadn't hit an inside pitch for a homer yet. And during this little run, they had all been outside pitches, and he'd been able to hit them all for homers. Yesterday was his first one that was inside that he actually got for a homer. And for Schwarber, he's a guy who has power to plays all fields,
Oh
but
yeah.
most of the time you think he's more of a pull hitter. And some of those from the outside he's been able to pull for homers, but a lot of them have been to either center field or the opposite field even. So it's been even fun to watch. I mean, our group chat always blows up with. It seems like every day Schwarber, Otani, Vlad Jr., Tatis. I mean, they're all just going back and forth about who's going to battle for the league lead in
Yeah.
homers.
Vlad Jr.
Yeah. I mean, the
But
two with Otani tonight.
yeah,
Again,
Otani's up to 27, I believe.
28.
28. Yeah, because yeah, because he's hit two tonight. He's up to
Yeah.
28. So, um, very crazy. That'd be on pace for 50 plus. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, very very good stuff. Entertaining players. It's one of the things that we're all about here. We all these performances, and it's so fun to watch a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who was non-tendered this offseason and got
Yeah.
replaced by a player we thought was so similar to him,
Yeah.
um, you know, be on a tear like this. And I think it's good to see, and it's especially in a year like this where the ball hadn't been juiced. This I think it means more this year. But for Kyle Schwarber to go on a tear like this than it did like just about everybody was going on a tear like this. Last year before last. Because of the
Yeah.
juice ball, but with the ball being not quite as juiced this year, I think this has been a pretty nice, a pretty fun thing to see. So um,
Absolutely.
definitely entertaining. But who is your hitter this week?
So I'm going with like the exact opposite of Kyle Schwarber. I'm going with the guy who's not known for power at all. And that's Adam Frazier of the Pittsburgh Pirates. His career high for homers in a season is 10. So complete opposite of what Schwarber's doing. But this week, Adam Frazier, he's one of the more underrated players in the league to me. I mean, he's hitting 444 this week, a 517 on base, a 708 slugging. He had 2 homers, but 9 runs, 3 RBIs. The RBIs aren't big because he's at the top of that Pittsburgh Pirates lineup, so he's not going to get a lot of RBIs. But one of the interesting things to me is that he struck out and walked at the exact same rate this week. So he walked 13.8% and struck out 13.8% this week.
Yeah, and you look at Adam Frazier as a guy who I believe, and he hit two home runs this week too, which
Yep.
is pretty interesting. But this is kind of a classic type of leadoff hitter. He
Yep.
gets on base a lot at 9% walk rate this year, roughly 8.7. Doesn't strike out much. Um, High average guy. Puts the ball in play. You know, he's a really solid player. Last year was a big time down year for him, but a lot of that was 246 BABIP related. Other than that, he's been a roughly league average to slightly above league average hitter who plays really good defense. So this is a pretty valuable player, and maybe a piece that the Pirates would look at moving around the deadline. So
Yeah, that he is one of the interesting names and hot commodities in the trade market world right now.
yeah.
So it'll be pretty interesting to watch. But who's your pitcher of this week?
So my pitcher this week was I was going with Kyle Freeland this week, who is a guy who was he a. I'm trying to remember if he was an All Star in 2019 or if he was just
I believe
kind of
he
a.
was. Let me
I know
see.
he finished real high up in the Cy Young voting, and he was good,
I think he was third,
um,
wasn't he?
possibly. But Colorado Rockies pitcher, who the last year or two has been a big time struggle for him. Ever since I think that was actually 2018 that he had that big year. Last couple years have been a big time struggle for Kyle Freeland. And starting off this year, major injury issues. But in his last two starts, he had a two-start week this past week. 11 strikeouts per nine, 1.6 walks per nine, and 11 innings pitched in those two starts. He has a getting the ball on the ground a lot, and he only gave up, it looks like, one run. So in those two outings. So really good stuff. I think there was a little bit of concern about him maybe having a hamstring cramp the other day in one of the starts that maybe got him pulled a little bit early, but he's he had a great start this week and or a great week this week, and he I think he earned a nice earned a nice little bit of recognition with that because he's a guy who it's tough to do that as a Colorado Rocky.
Yeah, he like you said that 2018 year he was not an all star. I just looked that up, but he had a fantastic year. Like you said, was up there with the Cy Youngs, and it was one of the more interesting years because trying to do that in Colorado with a guy, um, he's a big ground ball rate guys, but even then he doesn't throw particularly hard. He has a nasty slider though. So to see Kyle Freeland back after you said he struggled for the last couple years, it was really fun to see because I thought in that 2018 year that the Colorado Rockies had finally found one of their kind of ace pitchers or those upper echelon pitchers that they very much need. The high ground ball rate guy that can succeed in Coors Field, and to see him struggle the past couple years, it'd been really hard to watch because you saw what he had done in 2018. So it's really good to see Kyle Freeland getting back to that 2018 kind of form, and hopefully he can keep it up for more than just these couple starts he had because his year this year still hasn't been up to par yet.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate to, for him with what's happened. Now, you go back and you do look at that year that he had in 2018 and high VIP. His peripherals weren't great, but he's still, a guy that gets the ball on the ground a lot. It seemed like one of those situations where he was kind of legitimately beating his peripherals. And last year, I didn't. I was a little bit exaggerating on him being bad last year. He wasn't really that bad. A 4.33 ERA. Not terrible, not fantastic, but it's good to see him have a good couple good outings. This year it's been rough for him again, but with these last two outings, maybe after his injury, he's coming back into form a little bit. Stinks for the Rockies because I mean it just seems like they had this year from him a couple of years ago in 2018. They have Herman Marquez, who's been a pretty consistently good pitcher. John Gray, who's got a lot of talent. Senzatella's had stretches where he was good. It seems like they've got some pieces that they could build a rotation out of. It just hasn't happened. So you know, and with now they don't have any offense because of their they don't have any offense now um, because of their trades and stuff that they've made, and just bad contracts and not being able to supplement the guys they have. So anyways, it's been interesting to see, Kyle Freeland can do, and hopefully he can continue this recent form going forward. But anyways, who's your pitcher of the week?
So I went with Oakland A's rookie Cole Irvin this week. His first start really wasn't all that great. I mean, it was, I think, 5 innings, 3 earned runs, 4 strikeouts or something. It really, overall, the game that really made me keep an eye on him was Sunday against the San Francisco Giants. I was watching it. He went 8 innings. I think he had like 8 strikeouts or something. Overall, his week was 13 innings pitched, 10 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 12 strikeouts. But the way that he had carved through the San Francisco Giants lineup was, it was really amazing to watch. He was the third pitcher this year to make it through 7 innings against the Giants. The only other two being Walker Buehler and Joe Ross. But he was dominating. I mean, at one point, I believe it was like the 6th inning, and he was only at like 54 pitches or something, or maybe it was the 7th inning when I looked. His 8th inning was pretty rough. They worked that pitch count, got a couple guys on base, and it stopped him from being able to have the complete game. But Cole Irvin's had a really good year, and then being able to a team that had been leading the division, has one of the best run differentials in the league, so they score a lot of runs. Um, to be able to keep them at bay. I think he was even there was a shutout at that point. It was 8 innings of shutout ball. So really, really good start from Cole Irvin, and really wanted to mention him, even though if you look at his week overall, a 2.08 ERA. Um, not quite usually what we pick for these
Yeah, still
these
good,
weeks,
but um,
but yeah.
But yeah, definitely interesting. And Cole Irvin's been a big part for the A's. Seems like they get a guy like him every year that, he doesn't walk a ton of guys, and he might not strike out a lot, but he's, if you keep the balls in play with that Oakland defense, with Chapman behind him, even Elvis Andrews still decent defensively at shortstop. You got Laureano out there in the outfield who's good. Um, Matt Olson's probably the best defensive first baseman in the game. You've got all these pieces behind him. It helps a lot to have a guy like Cole Irvin who, is not going to get himself into trouble. But definitely good stuff for him this week. So we'll see what he can do going forward.
Absolutely. Well, getting ready to come up on the All-Star break in a couple weeks. We'll talk more about the home run derby participants as we figure those out probably next week. And I think in a couple weeks go over a breakdown. But pretty much all we have for this episode. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the BotFit Podcast, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.